Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the video. I'm GetGoodGuy, and today I bring words of caution, and it involves RSP, or what are now called, I believe, private games, or private servers, whatever they're going with, but I don't want to always be the bearer of bad news or negativity, so we will absolutely be looking at both sides of the coin, the good and the bad. And I want you to take everything I say today with a pinch of salt for reasons that will become apparent. Don't take everything as being 100% nailed on. Nothing is entirely set in stone yet, and we hope for positive outcomes. If you don't like what you hear today, make it known to DICE, not in an aggressive manner, just respectfully inform them that you're concerned about this information and that you'd like it to either be incorrect or altered if it is correct. It doesn't mean that anything will change if you do so, and it doesn't necessarily mean that anything should change, because our opinion will be different to DICE's opinion. But you can always speak your mind for the good of the game in your opinion. Also, Operation Underground drops tomorrow, so I hope you're super hyped about that, as I am. We're going to get lots of content out about that, so stick around, enjoy, all that business. So, there's been some new information unearthed about private games by Temporal, a Battlefield data miner. For those unaware, this means he dives into the game's files and unearths things that we aren't yet aware of in the playable build. Some of it is spot on, he tends to be correct most of the time, but obviously it's not always his certainty, and on occasion his information is off base, either because DICE changed their minds, something was cancelled, or DICE specifically altered plans after he found something. We never truly know, but that is why we can't take all of his findings at 100% face value. That being said, it's still worth paying attention to be excited for potential additions or to make our concerns known about potential disappointments. So here's an image of his latest findings regarding private servers. The point of interest is where it says, Tides of War is disabled for all private games. This means that you will not get any chapter XP or any other Tides of War progression. Now I personally didn't see this one coming, and it's a potential drawback that I, and I assume many, feel this game really needs to avoid. But then again, perhaps it was obvious this was going to be the case. Now to reiterate, at this point this is speculation, and I don't tend to deal in speculation at all for obvious reasons. But on this occasion I felt like not covering this would be to do you guys a disservice, as I know there's a large chunk who have waited extremely patiently for private games, so you want all the info you can get about it, and potential issues are better off avoided by hearing about them now, or by letting DICE know what you don't want to happen. Now at the point of making this video, I've waited to see if any response comes from a community manager, a developer, or any official channel, and well, nothing has. Which so far lends at least some validity to Temporal's findings, as another post he made recently was very quickly shot down by a community manager. But something may of course change, and I'm hoping DICE say that this in fact isn't happening, either because the information in the files is wrong, or because they decide to do a U-turn on it after hearing the player base's reaction. We shall have to wait and see. My initial concern is if this applies to all rental servers, as the wording seems to indicate, rather than just password protected ones. That would be a wide-reaching issue for sure, and would render a lot of rental servers probably pretty irrelevant. On the other hand, this is encouraging in some regards. This information was apparently added with the 4.6 patch, meaning things are still being worked on regarding private games, and it seems unlikely that it will receive the same fate as the competitive mode. It also hopefully means that private games being added ultimately isn't too far away now. But probably the most pressing concern is that so much of this game is tied to Tiers of War challenges and progression. That's kind of what this game was sold on, if we're honest. That was the big ticket thing that they pushed. A move away from the premium pass and instead a live service. If the functions of that live service aren't available within private servers, well, that's going to be a disappointment for many players. I doubt people really want to have to choose between progression or a lobby playing what they want to play. Now I can see why this would be implemented, for some good reasons and some bad reasons. The at least questionable good being to avoid private games being used in an exploitative fashion to gain progression. I also believe previous Battlefield titles may have functioned in a similar fashion, at least in some ways, and many games lock off progression elements from private lobbies. But again, Battlefield doesn't function like most other games, and this Battlefield doesn't function like other Battlefield titles due to that aforementioned live service. It's not like saying Destiny or Call of Duty where you use a private server to just mess around with your mates here and there. Some players want to use private servers in Battlefield all the time for their whole experience because it's different in how it functions. So there seems to be many more drawbacks than positives to these limitations being put in place, if in fact DICE do push it through in this manner, which once again we don't know 100% yet. And of course, it could be somewhat more sinister, let's say. It could be that Tides of War progression will be locked off unless you use a premium private game service rather than the free one. I certainly hope that won't be the case, but it wouldn't be a surprise to me. At the same time though, I'm open to considering that more so. Perhaps in this day and age, we shouldn't expect too much from a totally free rental server program, but with the Tides of War being so integral to the experience, doesn't that also make the free tier seem almost pointless? It's a tough one. Or perhaps Tides of War progression will be locked off because of its impact upon sales of XP boosters, if people do set up servers just to grind XP. Who knows, and I'm not going to directly accuse them, it's speculation, but I wouldn't be surprised at all. It makes business sense, but it's not consumer friendly. Now, it's worth mentioning that this information doesn't explicitly state that it will affect all parties. It's information that the creator of the server sees, at least from what we know so far, so perhaps it will only apply to them, which would still be another downside and a reason why people might be turned off creating private servers, but at least that outcome wouldn't be as bad as all players being affected. It also doesn't mention your specific player rank, so perhaps you'll still be able to grind up your level in private games, if you care about your level at all, I don't know. Personally, I don't, but in case you do, well, I figured I'd mention it. But my main overall question is, if private games drop with this limitation on Tides of War progression, or at least free servers do, are private games still an exciting addition for the masses? And if you were excited about it, is it still an exciting addition for you? I would imagine that limitations like this would suck a lot of the excitement out. Do people really want to set up their dream 24/7 Rush server, for example, only to not be able to use it if they actually want to progress through the live service? Or to be able to go through the weekly challenges for a new gun or whatever? There are real doubts there for me. Like, I love Frontlines. I miss it so much and I'd really like to set up a Frontline server. But is it going to be something people go looking for if the additional incentives to play the game are stripped away? So I really hope there's more to this story. I hope it's a mistake. Or I hope this jolts DICE into altering their plans, even if they decide to deny it was ever the plan in the first place. I mean, trust is pretty low these days, unfortunately, so it is possible, but as long as we get the right outcome, well, I'm down for it. At some point, I'm sure they'll come out and tell us what the deal is. Or, well, okay, I'm not sure, but it's at least possible. Maybe by the time this video goes up, which would be just my luck, if it turns out to be incorrect. But again, we have no idea when parties are being honest these days. So I'd still see it as a win if they say it's incorrect when my video comes out, because we just want to see the game be the best it can be in every way possible. If this issue being flagged up by Temporal, by me, by whoever causes them to say, okay, that's not happening, whether it was the truth in the first place or not, I'm still going to take that as a great thing. Now, I guess for those who want private servers for just competitive play, well, this is still okay. And for those who just want to play in a specific fashion, well, it's not so bad for them either. So at least it will still please some people if this ends up being the case, and that is a positive. And so, we come to the side issue. Is data mining for Battlefield 5 okay? I see some people absolutely ranting about it, whereas others find it interesting and it helps to keep them hyped for the game. Something which DICE have kind of failed to do on a consistent basis this time around, unfortunately. I personally don't mind data mining. I'm not bothered about spoilers and such like, and I'm also not particularly bothered when DICE don't bring something to the game that a data miner provides information about. I don't totally expect anything a data miner finds to actually come to the game. I just keep my fingers crossed for the cool stuff, and Temporal is often correct anyway. In addition, it helps us to hear about potential issues and voice our concerns, or at least be a little less disappointed at a later date if the information we don't want to hear turns out to be correct. Now, does data mining make things a little trickier for DICE? Well, possibly, but that's their concern if I'm completely honest. Perhaps more should be done to make it more difficult for data miners if it's such a problem for them, and the data miners aren't doing anything specifically wrong. Now, if you don't want spoilers or you don't want to be disappointed about anything and all that, well, I can understand that as well. I respect it also. All I can advise is that you avoid as many social media platforms involving Battlefield as possible. There's no other answer. There's always going to be speculation and such like, but yes, for you, data mining probably sucks. And so, let me know what you think about all of this, whether it's private games, data mining, progression limitations, or anything else I've covered today. I'd be interested in hearing the range of different opinions on this one, and I hope you enjoyed or found this video interesting. If you did, hitting the like button really does help me out, as does turning on those notifications and subscribing in order to stay up to date. If you want to see me play live, you can find me over at mixer.com/GetGoodGuy. A link is also in the description, and while you're down there, feel free to join my Discord server as well. Here's the Board of Awesome for the epic people who support the channel on Patreon. They're all absolute heroes, and I love them all deeply and of course, often. If you want to join them on the Board of Awesome, the link to the Patreon page page is in the description and my pinned comment. And with that all said, I'm GetGoodGuy, and I'll see you next time. Laters.
Oh, this thing is nice, dude. There a guy up here? Oh, there's also a tank. Also a tank. Don't run into tanks. Little tip for you.